Welcome to my channel and another close to my heart Twisted Sisters YouTube hop. My name is Sandy Zimmer, and today I'm going to twist up the Z4709 Sounds Like It Hurt Stampin' Thin Cut set. I will also be using the X7293S Hello Darling paper and sticker sheet, as well as our stamp of the month for April. Aren't those little birds cute? So all of these come from our April-June catalog, which you can see featured here. And here's a sneak peek of the cards that I'm going to show you how to make. Now, I may refer to this stamp set as the Band-Aid set because I'm kind of using those thin cuts to create most of these cards. Although I'm also using these sad faces to create this card. Fun twist. So here we go. Let's get started. So there's the set, and I'm just going to pull out the stamps and the thin cuts to show you. So there are the thin cuts, and then here are the stamps that are available on there. I'm going to use those little faces and some of the sentiments. So you can see here that I've layered up those Band-Aids and the squares on the stars paper as well as the plaid. And I can run those through my thin cut machine at the same time and get a 2-for-1 deal. So I've gone ahead and done that, and then I've cut the Band-Aids in half. And of course, I've got the squares there as well. So that little bird is from the stamp of the month, but I didn't end up using him on the set, but I do have some other videos coming up this month using those little birds. So if you're interested, come back to my channel and watch those. So you'll see here that I've grabbed that floral paper from the Hello Darling, and I've also cut strips off of the Hello Darling, that paper. I don't know what those little shapes are called. I want to say snowflakes, but they're not really. They're just kind of fun shapes. Anyway, I created sort of a zip strip along there. And then what I did was I went ahead and I created a mitered edge so that I got a nice finish on that corner. And I've adhered that to my card base. Now I'm going around and rearranging these little Band-Aids. I decided to put the small Band-Aids where there was a small opening, and then the big Band-Aids where there was more space. I sort of thought that filled it in a little bit better. And I sort of went plaid red, plaid red, plaid red, just to create some continuity. Here I'm taking the sticker from the Hello Darling, and I'm sort of trying to figure out where I want that to go, if I want it to be a vertical card or a horizontal card. I decide to go for a horizontal card. So I just snip that in half because I'm just going to use that hello portion. And I adhere it to my card front here. Then I'm just going to flip that over and use my scissors here to just trim right up along the edge. And because I like to use my journaling pen and do some doodling, I always go ahead and do that. So here I am, and what do you do when you create one doodle line and you don't love it? Well, you create a second doodle line to hide the first. And so I just ended up doing 2 doodle lines all the way around this. Now, sometimes my hand just naturally does the squiggly lines, and sometimes I have to assist it a little bit. But I do like the squiggles, and I think it's kind of a lot of fun. You never know what you're going to get, and you just have to be happy with what you get. Now, if you wanted to use a ruler for this, you totally could. Be a little harder around that, hello part, but you can do whatever you want or however you want to do it. So that's that first card. Now I've got those little patches, the square patches sort of built up there. I was playing with them, but I decided to use the leftover pieces of the big Band-Aid that I still had. So I know I'm not great for being on screen here, but I do figure it out eventually and slide it up so that you can see it. But what I did was I cut 2 slits in the bottom of each of those Band-Aid pieces so that I could weave them together. And admittedly, I made a bit of a mistake here as well. I have adhesive on the backs of those Band-Aid pieces. So when I'm trying to weave them together, I sort of struggle a little bit. But if you don't put adhesive on the back, you won't have that very same problem. So, do as I say, not as I do, right? So here I am, I'm lifting it up a little higher so that you can kind of see it. And I'm just weaving those pieces into each other. And of course, again, because I have adhesive on the back, I am struggling with it a little bit. And I will use my scissors here in a moment to help me slide them over a little so that they all line up perfectly. But as I said, don't put adhesive on until you're done. It'll be so much easier. So just finishing up that heart. I just love how that turns out. I think it's a really cool mix of pattern papers and it's a whole lot of fun. You could, of course, use plain papers for this as well if you want to. You could create a whole lot of embellishments on a layout or, anywhere with these hearts. So now I've gone back to my little squares here. I'm using a different pattern paper in the background. I just felt like it helped to add to the look of my quilt. So I'm doing a row of the red stars, and then I'm doing a row of the plaid, and so on, sort of starting to build my quilt pattern here. And I could have just gone with these big squares, but I wanted to add those little squares on just for a little more dimension and a little bit more interest. So I'm adding the plaid on the red and the red on the plaid. You get the idea, to build up my faux quilt here, if you will. Now, when I started this, that second layer of squares, I left a little bit around the edge to see if I liked that, and I didn't really. So you'll see that I pick those squares up with my scissors here and move them up so that they fit right up to the very edge. I felt that probably looked a little bit more like a quilter would do it. I'm not a sewer, so I don't really get it, but I think that looked a little bit better. So off screen, I finished this up and layer them all up. There we go. And now I'm just going to put it onto my card base, figure out how big I want to make it. Grab my little mini trimmer here, which I love using for cards. And I'm just cutting it down to fit onto my card base here. So there we go, just putting that on there. And then on the back of that pattern paper, there are some straight lines. So there's red, white, and blue. So I decide I'm going to use that to create sort of a barrier between my quilt and my sentiment. Maybe that's my sheet underneath my quilt. I don't know. So here I am using the stamp of the month, and the zip strip there tells me that coordinating colors are candy apple. So that's what I picked for my sentiment there. Sending birthday wishes is what this is going to say. I went with a pretty simple sentiment to go with that very patterned card front, and I really love how that turned out. So there's my little heart. Again, the zip strip shows me the colors, and again, I picked candy apple. I have a little strip of candy apple paper on my desk here. It's about 3/4 of an inch by 5 1/4. So I put that on the bottom of my card base here, sort of spaced it a little ways from the bottom. And then I'm grabbing my zip strip and I'm adding some adhesive, and I'm placing it in the middle of that so that I've got a little bit of candy apple showing at the top and the bottom. And then I'm once again going to flip over my card base here and trim that off. And then I'm going to add that cute little heart just to create a fun little card. So this time I'm going to use the stamp of the month sentiment. So along with those adorable little birds, there's some really great little sentiments on there. And I decide to choose the one that says sending love. So I ink up that love with my candy apple. I'm putting that on first just to make sure that everything fits. And then I ink up the sending and put that on. And really, I'm going to call that done. I think it's adorable. So now for card number 3 here, I'm going to go in and I'm using my ruler. We've got those grid lines on there, so I just use a pencil to draw some faint lines. I'm going to use that little sad face in my candy apple ink again and stamp those right along the line. Then when I've got the one side done, I flip over that sad face and create some circles or ovals, if you will, along that line. And I continue to draw those lines and fill in those spaces all the way up my card base, right up to the very top and bottom edge here. You'll see me doing those. Now in a second here, you're going to see that I grab my eraser and I drop it, and then I erase the lines. And I go in with my little gold paint pen and I create some circles where those, or some dots, pardon me, where those circles meet, just to cover up my imperfections. Now this Feel Better comes from the Band-Aid stamp set. And I adhere that onto my card base, and I add a little gold paint pen on that candy apple as well. Now I'm coming around with my blender brush and adding a little candy apple to the edge, just to sort of finish it off nicely. Isn't that cute? Who'd have thought that was a whole bunch of sad faces? Okay, so that was actually card number 4. I apologize, I lost count there. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the bell and subscribe. You'll get a notification when I post something new. I'd love it if you liked my post and if you shared it with your friends. Of course, you can order supplies from me. You can leave a message as well if you have any questions or anything you'd like to say. You can order supplies from me at sandyzim.closetomyheart.ca. And I want to thank you for watching. Please check out the description for a link to the rest of our Twisted Sister videos, as well as a list of supplies and where you can purchase them. Thanks so much for spending your time with me. Bye for now.